Continuing with our media availabilities this afternoon, we're now joined by Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 FedEx Toyota. Denny, a strong speed weeks for your team, and then also coming here to Phoenix where you won last in 2012. Just talk a little bit about this week and your approach this weekend.
Well, you know, we're obviously excited to get out here and see kind of what we've got on our short track program. We really struggled a lot at the end of last year as an organization. Over the last probably 2 to 3 short tracks, you know, we definitely were not competitive. Not really just us, but all the teams really had dropped off in performance. So excited to come here and see kind of where we were at. We obviously weren't very fast the first practice. We found some things with the car that was dramatically wrong that we kind of ran most practice that way. So we've got this whole new ride height thing is the learning experience for everyone. So we've got one practice under our belts that with trying to figure out how to tune it and adjust it. And obviously we misjudged a few things and obviously hurt us with our time, but hopefully qualifying gets in here later today and we're able to improve on the feel of the car.
All right, we'll take questions for Denny. Please raise your name and state your affiliation, and we'll start with Jeff up front, and then we'll go to Tom.
Jeff Gluck from USA Today. I'm just kind of wondering if practice doesn't get in tomorrow, and with you guys still trying to learn about these cars, like you were just saying, what kind of impact do you think that will have for people in the race? I mean, are you going to see people during the race going for huge adjustments to people that haven't figured it out yet? I mean, how do you see it playing out?
Well, I think you're going to have to. Even though that the times, when you look at the timesheet, everyone's still very close, similar to what it was last year in the years past. I still think that there's a huge gap between the haves and the have-nots right now. So I think that you'll probably, in my estimation, I think if you get someone out front that's hit on something, they're liable to check out and make it a nasty race. I think we all need that practice tomorrow to get a little bit closer. We'll see. Hopefully the weather all works out for us. But if we don't, we just got to kind of take our best guess at it, because obviously we're making huge changes just between practices to try to figure out which package is good, what's bad, and we obviously are still learning how to tune it. So if it comes down to the race and we're still kind of out in left field, then we'll obviously make big changes.
All right, we'll go to Tom.
Hi, Danny. Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. Based on what you've seen so far, who do you include in the halves?
I think that the 4 car I thought was the best so far. But if you look at kind of his teammates, they weren't all that stellar. But I thought the 4 was one of the better cars. But gosh, it's so hard to tell. I mean, you look at the times, and it's like, there's a few guys close, but consistently, I thought that he was the have.
Are you guys in the halves?
Not.
All right, we're going to go to Bob.
Bob Parker, Sporting News. When you said last week that you didn't have a spotter at all in the last couple of laps, I think it created some questions of, would you get black flag for not being able to have communication? Just how much communication did you have there, after the rain delay? Because I know on the radio we could hear bits and pieces, but not everything.
Well, it sounded like they could hear most of what I was saying. I couldn't hear any of what the spotter was saying for 20, 30 laps. Well, I heard him didn't hear him for 20, 30 laps after we came back green after the rain. Then we had issues where it would work under green for 50, 60, 70 laps, somewhere in that range, but wouldn't work under caution both ways. And then at the very end, I think it was about 15 to go, is when we lost total all radio. So at that point, I knew we had already made our last pit stop, and I really didn't need them other than for the performance end of things. Didn't have to plan pit strategy, anything like that. But I think, as far as the NASCAR rules are concerned, I don't know how that works, because, I mean, if they can hear me talking on one end, then it's at least a one-way communication. So I think that kind of is good enough. I didn't know. I couldn't, of course. Of course, didn't know that they could hear me, because every time I asked, "Can you hear me? Can you hear me?" I didn't hear anything back. So, but they said they did afterwards. So, I think that, like I say, as long as you got one way, it seems like it's okay.
All right, David Caravello, you're in the middle.
David Caravello, NASCAR.com. You mentioned earlier about how, Gibbs has sort of lost a handle on this place, and I guess Matt's struggles here in November were most emblematic of that. Have you guys had to totally rethink how you're approaching this racetrack, or does the car with the changes do that for you? And I also have a follow-up after that.
Well, our three cars in particular came with total different mindsets and packages, and we had really tested that way, trying to figure out what's the best way to attack these new this new setup type no ride height rule, new aero package and all that. And really, we all ran about the same speed everywhere we went, every track we tested at. And then when we came here, it seemed like our package was a little bit slower. But we were trying to stick with it and see if we can't get it better. And then, of course, we look after the practice, and we're off by inches on our measurements, and so that's a big problem when you're trying to get precise. So it's tough to say. I mean, we could all go out there and qualify well, and it turn into a good race, but who knows? We've only got an hour and a half out here on this track. All these engineers, especially the ones at Gibbs, are really smart, and they'll download everything that what the drivers have said, and the data that they see, and literally we can go out next run and have one of the fastest cars. They're that smart, and they make stuff happen. So literally, I expect a whole new race car next time we hit the racetrack.
Follow that up. I mean, you and Kyle and Matt are all accomplished short track racers, and by reputation, we should expect you would excel on a layout like this. Does that make it doubly frustrating to you guys that maybe it just doesn't suit your strengths when this should be your strength?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. The good news is all of our engineers and crew chiefs and everyone, they have confidence in what we say is what's going on with the race car. So, we are their only source of information when we go out there and we run, other than the pictures that they look at. So they take what we've got to the bank, and they'll fix it. So, like I say, it's so early in the season, and fortunately with this format where it's kind of win or nothing, you can afford to kind of throw caution to the wind and throw major packages at it between practices, because if you're racing for second, you might as well be racing for 20th. So it really doesn't matter.
All right, we're going to go to Dustin Long, Reed Spencer, and then Marty.
Dustin Long, MRN.com. You talked about what the engineers, what your team's going to do, if you don't have practice tomorrow and all the things they're thinking about. What do you do? Because realistically, after qualifying, you're not going to be back in the car until Sunday. Are you thinking about things, or is it just clear mind?
Well, the only thing I have to do is think about little things that maybe I didn't tell the crew chief that would help with the fixing process of the car. If there's something I left out that maybe would be vital for him to know to make a change in the right direction. Now, I think that our very last run of practice, we got heading in the right direction and picked up a lot of time. So we have an idea. It's just, like I said, it's really tough on the mechanics and all to deal with this no ride height rule when we're taking big swings at it. So the crew chiefs and all is asking for big changes, springs and shocks and ride height wise, and it's making it very tough on the mechanics and the car chiefs to get it exactly right every single run. And we missed it on that last practice.
I mean, just a quick follow is, if you're not close to being in the top 12 after you run your lap, is there enough? Could you make a change or two, or is it too? I'm assuming you were in qualifying trim at the end when you were feeling good. Could you essentially turn the qualifying session into a little bit of a practice session, knowing you're not going to have much track time?
We will. There's no doubt we will. Yeah, I mean, we will probably. I would imagine that's what you will do is go out there and use all that time you possibly can to log laps. So, you know, our hope is obviously by our first practice speed is that we wouldn't make the cut, but I have a feeling as jacked up as the car was, we probably, if we can make the first cut, then we'll go from there. But you know, if you don't, then obviously you've got some time. If you see you just are not going to get there, then you need to untape it, go out there and work on your car.
All right, we're going to go to Reed, Marty, and then in with Claire.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. Back to the spotter issue again, Denny. Junior said this morning that roughly 70% of the time, his figure, he can sense where all the other cars are around him, and obviously it's easier to be out front than it is to be trying to work your way through traffic. But as I recall, in the last couple of laps, you made one pretty dramatic move from dropping from the outside lane to the inside. Was there ever a time on those closing laps where you felt like, wow, you know, I wish I could do something, but I'm not sure I can?
You know, I would say for me, you know, when I said it was those 50, 60, 70 laps where I did have radio communication, it was sketchy at best. I basically had it every time I would unwind the wheel and go straight down the backstretch. It would come on, and as soon as I hit banking in 3, it would shut back off again. So I would have it down the backstretch, and so the biggest problem for me was when I got in the middle, you know, then I would have to check all 4 corners. And so then where I felt like it really hurt us was during that critical time of about 50 to go, when you need to start making your way forward. I was in some bad situations in the middle, and I almost kind of got in a couple wrecks. So I just went to the high line to make sure I put the wall on the right side of me. That way I only had to cover half my car, spot half the car. And so I knew I was safe on this side, which is you can't see the most. And so I just made sure whatever mistake I was going to make was going to be closest to me, so there was going to be less likely to happen. And by doing that, I just put myself up there, and I wasn't going anywhere. And so I had to take the risk late in the race, and by the time we got to the end, I just ran out of laps really to get to the front. One more restart or a little bit more time, but I just started making a charge to the front way too late, hoping that the radio would start working again. It just wouldn't. So I was having to play a lot of defense by just running up by the wall, making sure I was covering half my bases.
All right, Marty.
Marty Smith, ESPN. So do you win if you have a spotter? Or what's the percentage of opportunity to win that you didn't have if you had it?
Well, we only got to second on the last lap. You know what I mean? If I had some more time to work over the 88, obviously it would help, but who knows? I mean, he had one of the top 3 best cars of the weekend, so it would have been very tough. We saw really a lot of guys made their charge at him and had full communication, couldn't get by him. So not sure what we could have done, but, you know, of course you always want one more lap, but we had really, by taking that risk on the second to last lap, making the move to the low side to get position to get to second, that's when I needed the radio to learn to get my run to take the lead. Obviously guys were making a lot of decisions, and I was trying to ride the brake for the whole final last lap, trying to get some help behind, but I didn't know who was coming, what line was working or anything. So you hate to give excuses, and really I'm proud to finish second in the 500. That's the best finish we've finished ever. So, you know, those guys, it would have been hard to beat them, you know, no matter what circumstances that would have came up.
All right, final question from Claire.
Claire Relang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Well, your previous answer might have to do with why you were so excited and invigorated after the race, but a bunch of drivers were because of how up on the wheel and how intense and exciting that race was for everyone to race. I mean, the racers seemed to really like it, and it was up on the wheel for quite a long time. Do we see that here at Phoenix? That was just the weather coming, or is there anything different about this race given the chase and that intensity last week?
Well, I think the racetrack is going to temper a lot of the, excitement that we saw last week that was a product of super speedway racing, and at any time we can turn it up to that level and make it super exciting for the fans, but ultimately we put ourselves at risk of getting in a wreck when we do so. Here, I think the racetrack and the tire and everything is going to keep things kind of spread out for the most part. I think that this has just been a really tough track to pass on over the last couple of years since they repaved it, redid the configuration. So you can be all up on the wheel all you want, but you're not going to go anywhere unless I see something dramatically change from what we've had in years past. So it's just a tough track. It's I would say restarts are probably going to be very exciting. Typically, like they always are here, down the short chute, guys cutting the racetrack off. But after we get going green, it's going to be about who's got a fast car and who can make time up. After that, you're pretty much on your own.
All right. Denny, thank you for your time and best of luck this weekend.
Thank you.